Last year, right before deer season, I had an unfortunate mishap with the DR field and brush mower. I don't really know what caused it. I had done everything I wanted to do at my property, at least everything I had time to do, and I told my buddy that he could use it at his property, or more specifically, I'd come over and do it for him. Well, I let him use it for the last 100 square feet, or maybe even less. And somehow it sheared the bolt that holds the clutch from spinning. Turns out that's a common problem. I guess it's one of the few places where there's a weak spot on these things. There's a single bolt and single shear, and it ripped off. So, and when it did that, it pulled the wires out of the clip and basically caused a whole, as my grandpa would say, a mell of a hess. So, as you can see, it's pretty much new. I take really good care of my stuff, number one. Number two, it basically hasn't been used. There's probably, I don't know, 10 hours, 12 hours on it. Now, granted, it caught a lot of stuff in that amount of time, but, you know, maybe it's not that. Well, it's probably pretty close, 10, 12 hours. So, you know, the equivalent of that would be mowing, like, I don't know, 12, 15 acres. If you imagine, well, maybe not with how slow this thing mows, so maybe not that much. Maybe, you know, it's the equivalent hourage to do, if you had a zero turn, you're mowing your yard, say it took 2 hours to mow an acre an hour or something like that. All I'm trying to get at, it's the equivalent of, if you're comparing it to a mower, probably 12 or 15 acres of mowing. But you're probably not mowing that much, even if it was short grass and this thing was only cutting things that were nasty. So what we have to do, supposedly, is I already started loosening up the engine bolts. There's supposedly the bolt, well, the bolt, I'll show you the bolt that sheared off right there. See that? Sheared off right there at the nut. So they sent me for free on warranty a new clutch, new bolt, and 2 new nuts. Supposedly, you have to get the motor up a couple inches to get a wrench in to get that bolt out. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I'm not going to do, as you guys know, I kind of do the work on the channel and then talk about it, because I don't really want to, I don't have the manpower and the time to set up a tripod and screw around with that. If, I just noticed these interesting, are these tie downs right here? Lifting eyes, maybe? That's cool. Just noticed that. There's one on each side. How about that? Probably lifting eyes, I'd imagine, for service. Probably to fix this. Well, we're going to get going on doing it and see if we can get fixed, because this is something I've needed to do and I haven't done. So it comes with a new clip. It's all wired up. This one, when it went, it ripped the clip off, and I'm wondering if the rest of the clip's right there. It looks like it is, which means we might be able to save the clutch and have a backup one by rewiring it. We'll look into doing that. So let's get going on this and see if we can get this done today. I would love to have this machine working here quick. It's tipped up. It's super slick how you take the blade off. This shaft here, you can adjust how much it is allowed to articulate. So you literally take off, there's a pin that goes in here, and a washer. Well, there's a washer and then a pin. You take that off and it slides right off. You get the belt off by pushing the tensioner in, popping the belt off the drive, and your deck's off. So I'm going to work with this, and I'll keep doing periodic updates and see if we can get this DR. This is a 26-inch DR field and brush mower with the, pretty sure it's 12.5 horsepower brakes. It's a great unit. I did everything I asked of it. I don't know why it broke. Now, well, here's one reason I might know why it broke. I think I forgot to tell him to not engage the clutch at full throttle. You're supposed to, on these, supposedly, engage the clutch at a little above idle, engage the clutch, and then ramp it up. Well, I didn't think to tell him, and on most, like, zero turns, they want you to just engage it at max throttle. Well, they didn't put, since the bolt's it is in single shear, so, I would imagine that's where the bolt was, because you can see the witness mark of where the bolt rubbed there and probably sheared off, I'd imagine. Oh, wait. Dum-dum. That's on the new one. It appears. Maybe it wasn't tight. It looks like it's pushed it pretty hard. See that? That's interesting. So, why don't we get going and go from there? That quote witness mark was really just the sun shining nicely on that. There's actually a witness mark here. And so the bolt went through right here, I'm going to guess. which is kind of squirrely, I'm not going to lie. So they said that when I called them and sort of very nicely complained, they were very nice and said that they were working on a solution to fix this and that they'd have a retrofit kit. So we'll see about that. We'll put this on and we'll be a little more careful about engaging the blades because it happened literally right after he engaged the blades. He wasn't even bombing through anything heavy. It was like that tall of grass. So he engaged the blades in the grass, and I think that's kind of what happened was the blades were sitting in, the blade was sitting in the grass with the motor full all the way up, popped the clutch on in it, let go. So let's see what we can do. So here's the big bad boy right here. She sheared off like that. There's a nut that holds on from the bottom. It's an Allen on top, 13 on the bottom. It is a 15, isn't it? Yep. Motor bolts are 15. There's 3 of them. Or excuse me, there's 4 of them. 1, 2 under there, 2 on each side. The drive pulley comes off. There's a keyway. And then the main bolt that I already took out. Come on, focus. Focus, buddy boy. The main bolt that holds in with a big old washer that holds in the clutch assembly. So basically, it's really not that scary. I pulled off the fuel delivery line and a vacuum line off the carb. I think it's the it's probably an evap line actually from your fuel tank, and I kind of have it tipped back right now. And it'll be as simple as dropping the new bolt in, torquing it down, and then we'll have the other nut to put on once we get it back, and then we put the motor back on. So it's really not that scary. It hasn't taken that long. Kind of sucks to take apart a new unit, but things happen, and now I know to be a little bit more careful. The other thing I might want to keep in mind, too, is I don't know what grade this is, but to change this out for a grade 8 or a grade 10.9 or something really hefty. So we'll look into that. Go from there. Oh, here's your part numbers. There's your bolt, nut, and then here's a new drive bolt. So we'll reuse the nut that it came with because it looks like they gave 2 nuts. Excuse me. I'm sorry, they gave 1 nut, a replacement bolt. We have a new drive bolt over here instead of putting the old one back in, probably for the Loctite. So we'll do that. Due to its length, hold on. Due to its length, you're going to want to use a depot socket to get most of the way in, then use a 13 millimeter end wrench or ratcheting end wrench to put that on, and to torque it. So little tight quarters in here, swing a wrench. So is what it is. All right, guys. After some mild struggles, the motor's back on. I gotta get the keyway back in, get the drive sprocket back on. Basically, the biggest barrier is finding the holes. They're not countersunk that well, so it's a little hard. You got to get it perfectly lined up. Just takes a little bit when you're by yourself. So yeah, we'll keep going here and see if we can get some results. All right, it appears that the best way to line this up is to put the belt part downward away from the motor so that it spaces the belt down. Well, I'm sad to say I think this is how it works. That bolt sticks down, doesn't appear to have anything that physically holds it on. I don't know if they intended it as like a shear bolt or a shear pin, like to protect the motor. I guess I can understand a little bit. The motor's a lot more expensive to replace than the bolt, but that really sucks. Then again, I did cut through some really thick stuff and it didn't break. So my assumption is that bolt gets beat up and it eventually fails. So keep that in mind if you have one of these. Limit yourself to what it's supposed to cut, and you take a chainsaw with you and cut things it shouldn't cut. And also, too, I'm going to start, like I said, starting the blades without the, number 1, without the blades in anything, and number 2, without the engine RPM really high. So unfortunately, I think that's how it's designed right there. Now, I do understand that this is designed to do some pretty nasty things, so having a shear pin, if you want, in the system is a pretty reasonable request as opposed to replacing a whole motor. I imagine this motor is probably $1,000, or maybe it's not, I don't know, but they can't be cheap. shearing off a crank wouldn't be ideal. So unfortunately, I think that's how it works. Basically, the only challenge, the biggest, hardest challenges of doing this whole thing was realigning the motor bolts and getting the keyway into the drive gear, getting the belt on, sliding this on, and then forgetting that I needed to have the new bolt ready to go from the package. So I had to open up the package, which made it drop down, and I had to kind of do it over again. But once you learn the hard knocks, it's not so bad. Doing this again, I could do it in lickety-split because now I know what happened. But I wish that was a little bit better design. Then again, I think it's really it's intended as a shear option for if you hit something really nasty. So yeah, I think that's all it is, and I think I can start putting it back together now. Is what it is. I was kind of hoping, because I mean, I didn't look underneath it when I first got it, and they're never at dealerships. I ordered mine, so it is what it is, and we can go from there. See how tough this bolt is, and maybe it might be a good idea to find out the dimensions of these via the package and get a whole bunch more. Now the problem is that when it lets go, it rips the wires. But I'm going to try and recondition this clutch here because I just need to put the contacts back in. And in theory, I can get my other clutch with new wires on here, solder them on, put a new connector on, and have my other clutch as a backup clutch. So I'll probably get to doing that. But I think this is done. We'll put it back together and see if it works. So what I do is I loop the belt right onto the clutch under there, and then I just set it onto the wheel here and rotate it, and it goes on just fine. It's pretty slick. This retaining dealy bop just goes like this, and then this pin drops in like so. And then this comes off, and your top piece goes on. Now you can set adjustability. I'm sorry. You can adjust the tension on this, which gives you how much flex you have back and forth, which is pretty slick. Oh, creaky, groany old man here. All right, let's give it a try. Fuel on. Full go. We're neutral. Thank you for watching, everyone, and please remember to like and subscribe.